Hello, Bill Zam here. This is a prologue for the episode of Surrounded by Idiots that you're about to see, which is Season 3, Episode 20. This episode was recorded on June 15th of 2013. As such, much of the information that you are about to see may be slightly dated. We are now doing our shows on Saturday of each week. Our live broadcasts will resume after July 4th, 2013. You may see the show notes at ussamichigan.com. Thanks for playing along.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world at sunskyMysteries.com.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
We are poor little lambs who have lost our way. Ba, ba,
This message is transmitted at the request of the United States Office of Civil Defense.
Already, some in Congress are trying to undo these automatic spending cuts. My message to them is simple. No.
You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
So these cuts are not smart, they are not fair, they will hurt our economy, not well thought through. If we can figure out how to make energy out of that, we'll be doing all right.
The only real effect I can have is to create the impression that things aren't as bad as they are. To give our people time, the opportunity to survive.
I guess I just never realized I'd gone so far. We've lost so much control.
Totalitarianism doesn't need armies. It only needs to control a couple of things. The media and the ability to dispense privilege to some and withhold it from others. Of course, a weak and divided people helps.
There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immense, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, rands, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet.
Well, how are you guys doing? I'm back. I'm sure that you have noticed that we haven't been doing any YouTube-based shows recently, and there is a reason for that. But, as I've always said, even when we're not doing a show, we are still doing our show notes that are available at the website. Now, late in 2012, it became apparent to me, and I will show you what I mean a little later in the show, that doing what we do was becoming dangerous, as you have found out yourselves over the past few weeks. We all knew about these scandals. We all, in the group that I frequent my time with, we knew all about these scandals last year and before, even before that, which was the driving force in my decision as well as my health. However, I need to tell you a story that will help you understand exactly what I'm doing sitting here once more. When I was a little kid, about up until I was about probably 12 or 13 years old, we lived in a little town in western New York. The name of the town is called Alden. It is pretty close to Attica. And we had a nice little farm there. and I went to school in the Alden Central School District. Now, this was in the 1960s. I believe this is probably going to be before we went to the moon, to give you a idea of the time frame. Now, in our neighborhood, it wasn't really a neighborhood, it was very rural, it was a farming community. Down the street, there was the feed store, and there were farms next to us, and farms on the other side of us and everything. But there was a little subdivision just a couple of miles away, and a family had moved in there. And I met the kids. They were kind of like walking down the street, going to the little country store just down the street from us, and we became friends. And I went over to their house, and they came over to our house, and we had a great time. These became pretty good friends of mine. They were pretty cool. And then one day, I was in school, and this would have been the Alden Central School District, the middle school at the time in the 1960s. And I went into one of our classes, and I believe it was our band class. And I sat down in the auditorium with all of my books and everything for school. And one of the other kids walked up to me, and I had my books sitting on the chair on the seat next to mine. And there was hardly anybody in the auditorium because there's only like 20 kids in the class. And one of the other kids came up, picked up my books, and threw them across the room. Just picked them up and just wailed them right across the room. Amazing. So I called him a bad name that begins with a F, and I went over, picked up my books, and went back and sat down. A little while later, the teacher came in, just a few minutes later. And, of course, the kid that threw my books across the room jumped up and said, "Teacher, teacher," he called me a bad name, pointing at me. And the teacher came over, picked up my books, and he threw them across the room. And then he leaned down at me and he said, "We don't like your kind around here." What I found out, it was because of my friends, the kids that had moved in just down the street, and there weren't many kids my age in the area. And as it turns out, this was a black family. I had no idea. It didn't matter to me one way or the other. And apparently it did to some people. So I know about what I'm going to talk about right now. And I'll tell you why all of that is important. And that is because a few days ago, a friend told me that right here, right now, what we're doing, what I do, and hopefully you will start doing, this is the new civil rights movement. What we have to start, and apparently what God prepared me for, is we have to do everything that we can to preserve the republic. There will be pain. There will probably be deaths before all of this is over. But we need to do it. And so we will now do a Saturday show. It will be taped for now. We will probably do a live stream show later on in the year. But because of my neurocardiogenic syncope, which affects my voice, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a whole show straight through. I may have to do it in segments and take breaks. So I don't know if I am going to be able to do a live show reliably. Now I want to take you over to our show notes and get this show truly underway. And I want to tell you about something that happened over the past few days. Actually, it sort of started last month, but it really picked up steam over the past few days. Now, you all know who Matt Drudge is from his famous headline aggregator site, the Drudge Report. And Drudge also has a very, very popular Twitter feed as well. Over the past few weeks, he has apparently been trying to tell us something. And let's take a look at Drudge's Twitter feed. And here it is right here, Matt Drudge at Drudge. And you will see the first one that I want to show you is from May 13th, when this started, right here. And here's what Drudge tweeted. And in 25 years after the Great Civil War, after American Holocaust is over, a brave new president will unplug the database and vow never again. And then, this week, on the 13th of June, Drudge, in all capital letters, wrote, "We are experiencing a shitstorm of unprecedented levels." And then, immediately after that, he tweeted this right here. "Survivors need to raise your spirituality, raise your integrity, raise your nutrition, and raise your physical health. Raise your consciousness." Now, the folks that I've been reading at various different discussion forums and whatnot have been wondering, as have I, what's Matthew onto here? What kind of backside information does he have? Because, I mean, all of us in this business, we have our own various sources that each one of us has, and apparently his is telling him something rather important. So we will pay attention to that. Now, let's get back over to the show notes, and I want to tell you guys another reason why I haven't been doing a regular nightly show, and that's because this thing, what I do here, is I'm sure anybody that's ever tried this sort of thing knows, it takes about 4 hours just to gather the information, research, and format all of these show notes and everything. And then it takes another hour to get all of the servers and broadcast equipment squared away as the helicopter from the Michigan International Speedway flies over the studio here. It takes about an hour to get all the servers and broadcast equipment squared away, and you've got yourself a full-time job. Now, if you guys had bother to watch our shows from 2011 and that time frame, and they are out on the internet in various places, I should take them and put them up on this particular YouTube channel. But if you have if you watched this show in 2011 when I started doing Surrounded by Idiots, and even before that, in some of my commentaries before this show really got started, you will know that I have been running around yapping about how the United States had what I call a soft coup in 2008 with the election of the current idiot in charge of destroying the Constitution. A soft coup, by my definition, means this. Think Hugo Chavez down in Venezuela. He was elected, but he was still a little tin pot dictator. The same here. That is called a soft coup. The people elect the person that destroys their country from within. It's a soft coup. It's actually a coup. They're not doing what the Constitution or the founding documents of that particular country were designed to do. They're just like doing whatever the hell they want. And as it turns out, in the past couple of days, I have to, at this point, send myself into the world of endless self-promotion that all hosts simply have to excel at, and I have to mention the latest, shall we say, member of the bandwagon that I started way back in 2009. And I give you this article from WorldNetDaily. That's WorldNetDaily. Rush Limbaugh says, we are in the midst of a coup. Well, since I'm not a total idiot, yes, I know that there is no way Limbaugh could or would have bothered to listen to these shows or read my blogs. I already know this. However, my point is this. If it was obvious to me that we had a soft coup in 2008, then it seems to me that the likes of Limbaugh would have known it as well. So, welcome to my world, Rush. The cool, dark waters of my paranoia run deep. And let's see what this article says. This is by Joe Kovacs. This week's revelations about the federal government collecting massive amounts of communication data on American citizens has the country's most listened to voice, which apparently is not me, saying Barack Obama is leading a coup against the nation. And Rush said, and here's a quote, what everybody knows and what nobody wants to come to grips with is that we are in the midst of a coup taking place. Talk show host Rush Limbaugh said Friday afternoon. Actually, he originally said we're in the middle of a coup d'etat. I believe it was on Wednesday or Thursday. I'll have to go back in our archives as well as the Rush Limbaugh archives and see exactly when he said it, but it definitely was not on Friday. Friday is when he explained himself a little bit more. Now, let's continue here. What's wrong with calling this a coup? He continued. Exactly my point. There's a lot here to be concerned about, and that is exactly true. And Rush also says, I don't want to come across as a conspiratorialist. I'm not, Limbaugh said. Well, sorry to give you the bad news, Rush, but once you start down the coup road, yeah, that's a conspiracy, all right. And now, let's go ahead to the commentary section. And this is by, let me see here, Donna Halper, a self-described friendly liberal. I'm doing my air quotes. How come such actions as data collection and in Mr. Bush's case, unauthorized wiretaps, were praised as keeping us safe when President Bush did it, but demonized as a coup and danger to all Americans when President Obama did the exact same thing? Pardon me for a moment. I am already losing my voice. My note on this is this. Hey, dumbass, there is one very distinct difference here. And oddly enough, we're going to cover that in just a few minutes. Because you see, there is, in fact, a distinct difference. And some people might, they might argue the point when I bring it up, as I'm going to show you here in just a minute. As soon as I can get our show notes server to cooperate with me. It appears to be lagging. Apparently, the NSA is keeping an eye on the show tonight. Okay. Now, true to form, these people, these coup plotters, or the soft coups, or the coup d'etats, as Rush likes to say, these people are busily ignoring the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments, and probably more. But if you complain about it and exercise your right to assemble and peaceably seek redress from the central government, then you're targeted. You've heard and seen this all week long. The past couple of weeks, you've seen this from the IRS to the NSA, the EPA, and everything else that has come out in the past few weeks. But it's so nice, this audio clip that I'm about to play is so nice that I've decided to play it again. And it never gets stale, ever. I could listen to this 24 hours a day. I am tempted to take my iPod and load it up with nothing but this audio clip and just play it 24 hours a day. When I'm sleeping, when I'm taking a shower, when I'm driving down the road, when I'm at the store. And just listening to it 24 hours a day because it's so darned good. This lady nailed it on the head. This is Becky Garitzo, I believe is the pronunciation of her name, of the Wetumpka Tea Party. Now, this is the long version. This is 7 minutes long, and I believe that it should be played again and again and again. And as a special treat, as a exclamation point to what I'm talking about, I am going to show you something that you can read and look at while this is playing, so that you can achieve a contrast in how the different classes of people are being treated in this country. Hold on 1 second, and I will bring up the most excellent audio clip. And here we go.
Garrettson, president of the Wetumpka Tea Party in Alabama. Ms. Garrettson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. I'd like to begin with a brief statement. I know that you're primarily interested in hearing about the abuses of the Internal Revenue Service, but I believe it's critically important that you understand just not what these abuses were, but what exactly the IRS was trying to stifle. In order to paint a clear picture, I need to explain how the Wetumpka Tea Party came into being. My husband and I had never been involved in politics before 2008. We'd always been patriotic and deeply proud of our country. We've always felt that the United States is the greatest country in the world. In September 2008, when we had our first $700 billion bailout, we, along with millions of Americans, were very concerned. That bailout was confirmation that our government was out of control. But just a few months later, in January 2009, we learned that our government was going to spend another $787 billion. That money went to foreign nations, failing banks, and unproductive industries. We were worried, and we knew we had to do something to sound the alarm. We knew that government had gone far beyond its habitual deficit spending. The government was mortgaging America's future. And we knew that Washington wasn't going to stop by itself. In the spring of 2009, we learned that others were organizing Tea Party events around the nation to educate and empower concerned citizens who believed their government was out of control. So we made our plans. My husband and I filled out a permit to meet at a local park in our small town. My daughter and I walked through neighborhoods handing out flyers for our April 15th event. When the day arrived, we were blown away by the large crowd. A few politicians came also, but they didn't speak. We wanted to give ordinary citizens the chance to speak their concerns. Our event had no party affiliation. I could not tell you if the attendees were Republicans, Democrats, or Independents. It didn't matter. The only political notion expressed was one that we collectively felt, that our representative government had failed us. And that was the birth of the Wetumpka Tea Party. There are no dues, no price for membership. Our events are mostly educational. Whatever expenses are incurred are paid from donations, by donations and T-shirt sales. In Wetumpka, we are patriotic Americans. We peacefully assemble. We petition our government. We exercise the right to free speech. And we don't understand why the government tried to stop us. I'm not here as a serf or a vassal. I'm not begging my lords for mercy. I'm a born free American woman, wife, mother, and citizen. And I'm telling my government that you've forgotten your place. It's not your responsibility to look out for my well-being and to monitor my speech. It's not your right to assert an agenda. Your post, the post that you occupy, exists to preserve American liberty. You've sworn to perform that duty, and you have faltered. The abuses I will discuss today occurred on your watch, and it's your responsibility to make sure it doesn't happen again. Here are the facts of my case. We applied for a 501c4 in October 2010. Our $850 application fee was cashed 7 days later. We received a letter from Robert Cho dated November 2nd, 2010, stating that our application and our user fee payment had been received. It also stated that we should be expecting to hear from someone within 90 days. However, the IRS did not initiate any contact with us for another 459 days. That was when I received a letter from the Cincinnati office dated February 3rd, 2012. That letter stated that they could not process our application until we completed the enclosed questionnaire, which requested approximately 90 pieces of additional information about our organization. The questionnaire stated that if the additional information was not returned by February 24th, our case would be closed. The demands for information in the questionnaire shocked me as someone who loves liberty and the First Amendment. I was asked to hand over my donor list, including the amounts that they gave and the dates on which they gave them. 501c4 organizations do not have to disclose donor information. I knew that. Why don't they? Among the demands that I found alarming and inappropriate were, they wanted me to identify all of my volunteers. They wanted to know if any of our donors or volunteers had run or would be running for office in the near future. Remember, this was the 2012 election cycle. They wanted us to identify the office they would be running for. They wanted us to provide detailed contents of all speeches ever given, the names of our speakers and their credentials. They wanted copies of written communications and contents of all other forms of communications to any legislative body, including my own representative. I was very uncomfortable with these questions, as you can imagine, and my husband and I discussed forfeiting our application. However, within days of reading through these questions, we knew we were being targeted because fellow Tea Party organizers across this nation were getting the same types of letters and questionnaires. That was when we decided to seek legal counsel. On March 6, 2012, we retained the counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice, and they represented us in this matter. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Lois Lerner, dated March 16, 2012, asking that I provide the previously requested information. 4 months later, we received a letter dated July 9, 2012, stating that we had been approved to receive our tax exemption. This was 635 days after we applied.
And as you saw on the article that I had up on the screen while this lady was talking, the Barack H. Obama Foundation was approved in 30 days, and their tax-exempt status was made retroactive by 3 years. That is what I'm talking about in a nutshell. Let me re-explain what exactly a soft coup is. A soft coup is when by hook or crook someone is elected that has stated quite clearly that their goal is to destroy a country. From the energy costs under my plan must necessarily skyrocket, to a step toward a single-payer system, to a fundamental change. We were told he was going to make these changes. And now everyone is blithering and blathering about what you and I already knew. What I have been talking about since 2001. What conservatives have known for years and years. These people are communists. These people are fascists. These people are big government, disarm the citizens, the Constitution, our negative liberties, progressive liberation theology denizens. You can call them Democrats or Republicans. They are the same people, and from the same mold, from the same damned mindset. So now we are faced with the absolute fact that they have militarized the police. They have the Department of Homeland Security assault vehicles. They have millions and millions of rounds of ammunition to the point where citizens cannot obtain said supplies. Another prediction that I made, by the way, way back in 2001. Control the ammo, and you control the guns. You don't have to take away the guns. Just take away the bullets. They don't got nothing to shoot. Doesn't matter if they got a gun or not. What are they going to do? Use it as a club? They have stacked the entire central government with henchmen that target the loyal opposition. Valerie Jarrett came right out and said on November 5th, 2012, from the Natty Conservative website right here, and I'm sure that most of you have already seen this and heard this. She has openly declared Obama's brain, Valerie Jarrett. And this was written before the election. And I'm wondering a couple of things about this. First, I talked about this before the election. Limbaugh talked about it, as did Levin, Beck, Hannity, and a host of others. And none of the low-information voting idiots listened. And that's why we are in the fix that we're in. The point being that no one that pays attention is surprised by any of these scandals. I would suggest that you start waking people up, and don't do it by email, and don't do it by sending emails. Don't do it by posting on some natty website. Print flyers, hand them out, or mail them. Better yet, set up a table at your local farmer's market, craft shows, or festivals. And be sure to videotape the whole thing when the cops show up and kick your ass out of there. Now, on November 5th, 2012, this is what she is supposed to have said. After we win this election, it's our turn. Payback time. Everyone not with us is against us, and they better be ready because we don't forget. The ones who helped us will be rewarded. The ones who opposed us will get what they deserve. There is going to be hell to pay. Congress won't be a problem for us this time. No election to worry about after this is over, and we have 2 judges ready to go. This occurred within a couple of days of Obama himself, the President of the United States, said to an audience member who booed Romney's names, "No, no, no, don't boo, vote. Voting is the best revenge." And apparently, folks, they have are making good on their word. They're making good on their word even before the election, as you know, by the entire IRS scandal. My question at this point, after hearing that comment by Valerie Jarrett, the Obama's brain, as they like to call her, my question is this. Who are these 2 judges? Would anyone care to take a stab at it? Think back to the health care decision and that betrayal. Yes, they have 2 judges ready to go. One has to wonder what the IRS and NSA have dug up on them, whoever those 2 judges may be. One has to wonder that in the mind of the never let a good crisis go to waste crowd, that apparently the NSA and IRS were able to dig up something on these 2 judges that caused them to, shall we say, go to bed with the devil. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That is very disturbing to say the least. And speaking of disturbing, over there in Oklahoma, you remember Oklahoma, I don't have the map up because I wasn't planning on mentioning this, but over there in Oklahoma, believe it or not, the week before the big tornadoes in Oklahoma, HAARP was just pounding that area of the country. And then HAARP was refocused on Florida right around the time of that tropical storm they had come through there. And then, this past week, HAARP was focused on the Michigan-Indiana border. And we had some of the most severe storms that we've had in a decade come through here. At any rate, looters from as far away as New York have traveled to Oklahoma, looters, to partake in the tornado aftermath looting spree. I have a suggestion for the powers that be, the leaders in New York, instead of banning salt, smoking, and soft drinks, how about if you ask clowns in New York do something with the idiots that are going across the country looting from people that have lost everything in a tornado in Oklahoma? What the hell? That's unacceptable. The Oklahoman, that's a newspaper, reports that police arrested one man from Elmhurst, New York, and two from Virginia on misdemeanor complaints of stealing copper wire, scrap metal, and other items from homes destroyed by the May 20th tornado. 24 people were killed in that incident. Our next story, that I like to call Panic in Detroit. And when you go to the website and look at the show notes, I have some very interesting links. As National Review's Andrew McCarthy points out, that kind of surveillance on private citizens, this would be the NSA stuff, has been going on since 2006. In a story headlined "Phone Record Story Blown Out of Proportion." This is 2006. McCarthy says, now we begin to see the wages of having an administration that abuses its awesome powers, then as night follows day, stonewalls and misleads Congress and the public. Crucial national security measures which operate on the forgiving assumption that government officials will conduct themselves honorably are put at risk, and that is the key phrase, conduct themselves honorably. The Washington Post publishes wildly exaggerated report this morning about the government's collection of phone records for national security purposes. Mind you, I said the collection of telephone records, not wiretapping a phone conversation, a critical distinction. The story sensationally proclaims that the National Security Agency appears to be collecting the telephone records of tens of millions of Americans, records of cross-border as well as domestic calls. Now, I'm wondering, has anyone other than McCarthy noticed that the record gathering initiated back in the Bush days is what Obama would consider concrete proof that you can blame it on Bush? But that is the distinction. Because George Bush, even though he was the previous head idiot, I don't think that he was using the IRS to shut down liberal groups. I don't think that he was using the EPA to shut down conservative companies or entire industries to punish people for not obeying him. I don't think that he was using the NSA phone records like they are being used now. And I don't think that we had much to worry about. Yes, we had something to worry about, but not as much as we do now. The point being is that the Patriot Act was flawed right from the start. It was garbage. It was no good. It should have been dead on arrival. It never should have passed. But everybody was in shock because of September 11th. Everybody was upset, and everybody wanted to be protected. So, essentially, when it went along with it. Now, if that had happened today, okay, and back then, public opinion, as I recall, was for the Patriot Act. Not tremendously so, but enough that we got the Patriot Act. Now, suppose that the citizens, by poll and by making their voice heard, told the Congress and Senate and the President, no, we don't want that, period. Don't do that. We are telling you, don't do that. And they do it anyways. Now, what would you say to that? That they don't listen to the people? Well, what would you call that? You know what you call it, just as well as I do. Now, that brings us to the entire point of this exercise. Neither party at this point is loyal to the Constitution anymore, with very few exceptions, and they are being frozen out. Don't piss and moan that that's not true. You and I know that's garbage. I had a different word written down that I decided not to say. They're one and the same. One side is communistic and the other one is communistic light. The coup is a done deal. They have the controls. They twist the knobs as they like, and voila. Just like that, people are disappeared. They commit suicide. They decide to get out of the business. They abruptly leave the country. They are blamed for things that they never did. And just like all the other times that this has happened, there is only one single distinction that keeps this from happening. Do you know what that is? Do you have any idea what the single distinction that this country has that keeps us from going the way of all the other countries where you have a totalitarian type of government? Think about that. Think about that for just a few minutes. Now, on a completely different subject, that's a clever segue, as you'll see in a minute. Let's take a serious look at how all of this is going to end. And it is going to end at some point. First up is the secondary idiot, Joe Biden, Vice President of the former United States, once again spilling the beans with his magical pie hole. Let's take a look at what our good buddy Joe has come up with this time. That's the wrong one. There it is. This is from the Politico. Joe Biden says, gun control to wait for immigration. This is by Reed J. Epstein from the Politico.com website. Vice President Joe Biden on Monday acknowledged what everyone involved in gun control has been saying privately for weeks. Any votes for expanded background checks must wait at least through the summer while the Senate debates immigration reform. The Vice President's words mark the first time the White House has revealed a timeline that has been widely discussed among gun control advocates and senior aides to senators who are pushing for background checks. Well, but wait. There's more, as I'm sure you may have guessed. Let me go on to the next story. This next story comes to us from the New American. Right there. Now, let me see if I can actually get the screen to work correctly. And no, it is not. How do you like that? Isn't that great? Don't you love it when stuff like that happens? Well, let me go back here and see what we can find. Okay, this is titled, Obama to Ignore Senate and Sign Second Amendment Violating Treaty. A majority, this is by Chip Wood, by the way, a majority of the U.S. Senate has told President Barack Obama not to do it. There's no doubt that an overwhelming majority of Americans would oppose it if the media ever told them about it. No doubt, once this, if it ever does get into the lamestream media outlets besides the usual suspects, you can expect that it will be heralded as a grand idea, second only to the Kyoto Accord. And this is important, the poo-poo crowd, that's the folks that are on the lamestream media, the poo-poo crowd will get paid super hazard pay, double overtime with benefits to tell you that it actually protects the Second Amendment. Trust me, you're going to see more wheelbarrows full of shit running around than bras at a local Victoria's Secret. Although the treaty is being touted as a way to prevent illicit trade in conventional weapons, It actually does far more than that. Among other outrages, it demands that every nation create a registry of gun owners, manufacturers, and traders within its borders, and also that each country establish mechanisms that would prevent private individuals from purchasing ammunition for any weapon they do own. You remember what I said just about, 5 minutes ago? About if you control the ammunition, you control the guns. You want to take guns away from people? Take the ammunition away from people. And then Joe says, we're going to do this gun control thing this fall, towards this winter. And, oh, look, Obama's going to go ahead and ignore everybody and go ahead and agree to the treaty. But, however, let me jump forward here to something. Okay, let me jump back over to here while I'm cleverly and pithily making comments to you about this particular story. What you have probably forgotten about at this point, because you're going to think to yourself, well, hell, Bill, the Senate, the Congress, there's no way they're going to go ahead and approve that treaty for use. I mean, Obama can agree to sign it all he wants, but the Senate and the Congress have to agree to it. Au contraire, ma frere. See, the magical powers of the executive order come into play at this point. And it depends on who you talk to and who you listen to about executive orders. Now, we all know that this particular gentleman does things fast, wild, woolly, and crazy-like when it comes to obeying the Constitution, the law, and normal things that normal human beings would do. You see, what I have been led to understand, and this may be wrong, I have only found a couple of sources on this, and I can't find anybody that knows one way or the other. Half the people say, nope, not possible, and the other half of the people go, with this guy, anything's possible. You see, with treaties, after 6 months, if the Congress doesn't act, then poof, like Puff the Magic Dragon, the executive order takes over, and voila, we have gun control in the United States, brought to you by the same wonderful people who brought you Agenda 21. And I think at this point, it would be a good idea to take a look at what is called the executive order. This comes to us from dmc.members.sonic.net. dmc.members.sonic.net. Executive order, a presidential power not designated by the Constitution. This is by Harry Martin with research assistance from David Cowell. And this is from Free America, 1995. Section 1, Article 1 of the United States Constitution is concise in its language. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. When the Constitution was proposed, let me zoom in on that more so that you can see it better. When the Constitution was proposed, those opposed to a strong central government, the anti-federalists, argued that there was no Bill of Rights to protect the people and that a centralized government would become too powerful, usurping the rights of the individual states. Does that sound familiar to anybody? At the time of its formation, the Constitution was created in secrecy and in direct contradiction to the mandate of the Congress, which was to amend the Articles of Confederation that were governing the infant nation since the end of the American Revolution. Moving on, the greatest fear the founders of this nation had was the establishment of a strong central government and a strong political leader at the center of that government. They no longer wanted kings, potentates, or czars. They wanted a loose association of states in which power emanated from the states and not from the central government. And now I need to point something out. At this point, when I read that sentence, I became what the Department of Homeland Security calls a terrorist threat by saying that the founders of this country no longer wanted kings, potentates, or czars. They wanted a loose association of states in which the power emanated from the states and not from the central government. I am now what is considered an enemy of the state. Let's continue, shall we, while I give Gene Hackman a call. John Adams advocated that a good government consists of three balancing powers: the legislative, executive, and the judicial, that would produce an equilibrium of interests and thereby promote the happiness of the whole community. It was Adams' theory that the only effectual method to secure the rights of the people and promote their welfare was to create an opposition of interests between the members of two distinct bodies, legislative and executive, in the exercise of the powers of government, and balanced by a third called the judicial. June 8, 1789, James Madison proposed the Bill of Rights to the new Congress. The concept was simple. According to Madison, all power originally vested in and consequently derived from the people. That all power is originally vested in and consequently derived from the people. That government is instituted and ought to be exercised for the benefit of the people, which consists in the enjoyment of life and liberty and the right of acquiring property and the generally of pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. That the people have an indubitable, inalienable, indefeasible right to reform or change their government whenever it be found adverse or inadequate to the purpose of its institution. He further advocated the civil rights of none shall be abridged on account of religious belief or worship. And what have we learned over the past couple of weeks? Well, Department of Justice says, you say something about Muslims and you can be charged with a crime. But they can go ahead and behead you, burn you, harass you, sue you, have the police arrest you, and well, that's okay, because that's not really a crime. Let's continue, shall we? Civil rights. Let me repeat that. The civil rights of none shall be abridged on account of religious beliefs or worship. The people shall not be deprived or abridged of the right to speak, to write, or to publish their sentiments. Interesting. And the freedom of the press, as one of the great bulwarks of liberty, shall be inviolable. The people shall not be restrained from peaceably assembling and consulting for their common good. And I will point out what the others have pointed out in the lamestream media, that the Tea Party groups that were harassed and denied their tax-exempt status, that didn't keep them from peaceably assembling and seeking a redress of their concerns. Didn't do it at all. Not a problem. So what? All the liberal groups, they got their tax-exempt thing, and they got millions and millions of dollars, and they were able to have campaign rallies and everything for their candidates and whatnot, and they probably even got some candidates on the ballot and helped back them and everything. That's the Tea Parties. They shouldn't be doing that because, quite frankly, they believe in this claptrap that I've been reading here for the past couple of minutes, and everybody knows that the Constitution is dead, and these people sure as hell need to be re-educated in a FEMA camp somewhere. At any rate, let's continue, shall we? Let me start that all over again. The civil rights of none shall be abridged on account of religious belief or worship. The people shall not be deprived or abridged of their right to speak, to write, or to publish their sentiments. The freedom of the press, as one of the great bulwarks of liberty shall be inviolable. The people shall not be restrained from peaceably assembling and consulting for their common good, nor for applying to the legislature by petitions or remonstrances for redress of their grievances. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, let me be the first to point this out and to make this announcement. Check, 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 check. Oh, there's only one right that they haven't taken away yet. Guess which one that is. Go ahead and guess. Just like you can go ahead and guess, and I'll just go ahead and wait right here. And I'll just show you that screen again. I'll wait right here while you think about it, and see if you can guess what exactly the last thing that they haven't taken away from us is. Let's see if you can figure it out, and let me see if you can guess it. Have you guessed it yet? Have you guessed it? That's right. It is the right to keep and bear arms. For those of you that guessed it, you deserve a great round of applause. And there you go, a round of applause just for you for guessing what the last part of the Bill of Rights that they haven't taken away from us is. Now, let's move on to our next story, but first we are going to take a break for the news, and we will be back in just a few minutes.